Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so today we are exploring a really fascinating piece of environmental management systems. We're looking closely at ISO 14000:2026 Clause 9.1, which is all about evaluating monitoring data, assessing your KPIs, and basically utilizing performance analysis to drive continual improvement. Now, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by endless spreadsheets of environmental metrics, trust me, you are not alone. Think of Clause 9.1 as your ultimate decoder ring. It's that essential mechanism that turns all that environmental noise into clear, actionable signals. So let's dive right into this. Let me ask you something. Are you hoarding environmental data, or are you actually using it? It is incredibly common to fall into this trap of just data hoarding to satisfy audits. You know the drill. You collect the numbers, you file them away, cross your fingers, and just hope the auditor doesn't look too closely. But as the source material points out, collecting data without rigorous performance analysis leads to some massive missed opportunities. It's totally passive. Clause 9.1 actually demands that we actively utilize our data to drive real, continual improvement. All right, so here's our roadmap for today. We are going to cover the core monitoring framework, transition from raw data to meaning, evaluate our KPIs and objectives, examine some common audit nonconformances, and then finally wrap up with driving continual improvement. It's a really logical journey for your information under Clause 9.1.
Starting us off, Section 1, the core monitoring framework.
The harsh truth here? You simply cannot build a solid environmental strategy on shaky data. If the foundation of your data collection is flawed, any analysis you do later is going to be completely useless. So ISO 14001:2026 requires organizations to systematically define 4 core things to fix this. First, what to monitor, meaning what are your significant environmental aspects? Second, how to perform it. What are the scientifically valid measurement techniques? Third, when to measure, because obviously high-risk areas need more frequent checks. And finally, who is responsible, ensuring competent personnel are actually in charge. This framework guarantees systematic collection, rather than just grabbing numbers when someone happens to remember. Now let's apply the so what rule to this framework. Why does the how matter so much? Well, because equipment calibration matters immensely. For instance, if you operate a power generation facility and you fail to calibrate your continuous emission monitoring systems, you aren't just getting bad data. You're generating false confidence that can directly cause regulatory violations and potentially massive fines. Accurate data is quite literally your very first line of defense. Moving right along to Section 2, from raw data to meaning. This right here is where the magic happens, transitioning from the chore of collecting to the strategic advantage of analyzing. Think about a raw data point, like 500 kilowatt hours of electricity used. Without any context, that means absolutely nothing. Is it good, bad? Who knows? But if we normalize that data relative to a production output, we might uncover an analyzed insight, like a 10% increase in energy intensity per unit manufactured. Suddenly, we have actionable meaning. We know we're becoming less efficient, and we know exactly what processes we need to investigate. To actually get those insights, we rely heavily on trend analysis. Basically, it's about identifying gradual deterioration or improvement by looking at data patterns over defined time periods. And it is absolutely vital. If you're tracking water consumption, trend analysis allows you to spot seasonal variations or subtle equipment inefficiencies, like, say, a slow leak in a cooling system, long before they escalate into costly emergencies or absolute compliance nightmares. Okay, up next, Section 3, evaluating KPIs and objectives. So collecting data and spotting trends is great, but the standard demands we evaluate it against specific environmental objectives to make it truly speak to top management. Let's say you have a Q1 target of 80 tons for waste reduction, but your actual waste hits 85 tons. By visually assessing this KPI, management instantly sees that the organization is deviating from its targets. Boom. It triggers an immediate investigation into the root cause. This is exactly how data actively drives management decisions. The crucial takeaway here is that your objectives must be measurable. The source material gives a fantastic example of this, setting an objective for a 20% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions over 3 years. That specific quantitative number requires rigorous KPI evaluation. You can't just say, well, we want to pollute less. You need that 20% target to ensure your monitoring actually proves whether your operational controls are working or failing. Which brings us to Section 4, common audit nonconformances. So, what actually happens when organizations fail this analysis under the strict, investigative eyes of an ISO 14001 lead auditor? Well, the most glaring systemic failure is presenting raw, unanalyzed data to management during reviews. If your requirement is to analyze trends, but your common failure is just handing the boss a massive spreadsheet of monthly energy bills, you're absolutely going to get a nonconformance. Auditors expect insights and strategic interpretation, not just a data dump. Let's quickly run through a few other major audit traps. Uncalibrated equipment, as we discussed, completely ruins data integrity. Inconsistent monitoring frequency means you're going to miss the spikes in your emissions. Vague environmental objectives, like setting a goal to simply reduce environmental impact without a measurable metric, is a massive red flag. Failing to do root cause analysis when KPIs are missed is another. And honestly, worst of all, monitoring purely for compliance so you can just check a box, yeah, that will trigger a nonconformance every single time. And finally, Section 5, driving continual improvement. This is where we tie everything back to the Clause 9.3 management review and those tangible environmental outcomes. Think about the chronological flow of environmental intelligence. You monitor the data daily, say, tracking the pH of your wastewater. You analyze those trends monthly to catch inefficiencies. Then you review all those aggregated, analyzed insights annually during the management review. And that annual review generates decisions that drive ongoing continuous improvement projects. It's a perfectly linked chain, going from a single daily data point all the way to strategic corporate innovation. A really core realization derived from the standard is this: monitoring data is not unused potential. It is actionable knowledge, driving sustainable decisions. Clause 9.1 isn't just some retrospective compliance checkbox. It's a proactive, strategic driver of innovation. When it's properly analyzed, your performance data tells you exactly where you're wasting resources, where your risks lie, and where your next big opportunity for sustainability is hiding. So I'm going to end with a challenge for you. Look at your own KPIs this week. Are they just numbers on a page, or are they actually telling you a story? How will your environmental performance data drive your next big improvement? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go out there and turn that data into action.